you always have to be self-motivating, right? You have to surround yourself with the right people, and you always got to be networking. Like, one of my biggest things is networking and bringing people together. I don't believe in competition. I'm one of the few people that don't mind bringing my buyers and sellers and wholesalers all together in one room to collaborate. People ask me, like, what are you, crazy? You're inviting all your buyers to meet all these wholesalers? Like, that's stupid. I was like, nah, it's really not. All roads come back to Rome, right? All roads lead to Rome, and they know who puts this together.
The good news, the best insider look into the most influential individuals in the real estate industry as a whole.
And I'm your host, Michael Smith. And with me, as always, is Mr. Dominic Cardarelli. Together, Dom and I have over 20 years of real estate experience, and we always love sharing the good news. Today on the show, we have Mr. Greg Guzman. He is a full-time real estate investor and owner of Gbuysphilly, which is one of the top wholesaling companies in Philadelphia. Since 1999, he's completed over 100 flips and built one of the biggest real buyers lists in Philadelphia. This enables him to joint venture with other wholesalers who just can't find a buyer. G, what's the good news, man? How you been?
What's up, guys? Everything's good. Everything's great, man. Can't complain. You know what I mean? It's just grinding every day. And this is the best business in the world to be in. So, I'm here to help.
Like that. You are like the OG of like wholesale in Philly, man. You're like the guy, you've been doing it forever. So awesome to have you on the show today, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I started back in 1999. So I've definitely been doing this for a minute. It's been over 23 years now.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was the game back in 1999? Can you shed some light? Give us like a window into that year.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, when I started out, I was 27, 28, and I really wasn't sure what my next entrepreneurial thing would be. I knew it was going to be something. I was looking for that next thing, and someone brought me to a Philadelphia sheriff's sale. It was actually a tax lien sale. I kind of just fell in love with it, and they mentored me on a couple different on the first few sales to show me like the ropes. But it just became like a drug for me. I loved it. I wanted to do it every day. I ended up going to like 2 or 3 tax sales and 1 mortgage sale every single month. By being able to do that, because there were so many properties that you're like bidding on or coming over through the auction, you're always driving. You're always looking at properties, evaluating whether it's vacant or occupied, what the condition looks on from the outside. And that actually helped me learn the street so well, because I was looking at, 50, 60, 70, 100 properties a week sometimes, just driving by. And, now I know every zip code, every street. I can tell you where every stop sign is on the ground. I mean, I know every, I go from North Philly to Queenville, like every, you can hit any street, and I'll let you know about that 100 block.
So you were just predominantly just doing sheriff's sale, bank-owned properties, things like that. I mean, I can only imagine without the power of the internet back in the late 90s, early 2000s, man, this is probably pretty difficult to pull like public records and stuff, right?
No, for sure. It was all like networking, and really sheriff sales was the biggest way to acquire properties like quickly, where you literally like, the last man standing wins, right? So if you're the last guy bidding and no one else is bidding, you leave with a property that day. And so your goal is to research, 100 of them, bid on 50 of them, and leave with, 3, 4, or 5 of them. But yeah, there was no like text blasting. There was none of that that's happening now. I mean, obviously there was like printed letters going out to homeowners, but I think that was it. There was no, internet leads and all of that. So it was really just like running the streets, walking the streets, driving the streets. I mean, I'm a big believer. Any of my guys that work for me, one of the first thing I tell them is, you got to hit the streets. If you're not going to hit the streets, if you're not going to walk for dollars, drive for dollars, it's a disservice to yourself and whoever you're trying to work with.
Yeah, I remember one of my first campaigns, I actually used to knock doors, and it actually worked, because not only were you able to kind of get the inside look at the block, right? Because you walk by and then the property's abandoned, but the person next door probably has more insight onto that property. So, that was some of the easiest ways to get lead, was to actually just, like you said, hit the streets, walk the blocks, knock the doors. But today it's not as easy.
Someone said something funny to me once that used to really be good at knocking doors and just go door knocking. He said, the main thing, a lot of people knocking on doors, when they knock on the door, they hope no one answers. You got to hope someone answers so you can actually get something out of it. Not just that you're doing the job, you're actually like getting something out of it. Half the people don't want, they hope in their heart that no one answers the door so they can go to the next one.
Yep. They fear that confrontation. You gotta embrace yourself, man. You gotta be ready for anything.
For sure.
Yeah, I remember me and Mike, I brought out one of my buddies with us one time. This was maybe like 2015. Mike, I don't know if you remember this story, but so I bring my buddy out. We're in like the heart of Strawberry Mansion in 2015, before anything was really happening over there. It was just a straight hood, right? And my buddy's with us, and he's from the burbs. He's from Newtown, where I'm from, right? And he was just like culture shocked when we were out there. And there's a bunch of guys are hanging out on the corner, and he was like, "Oh, bro, there's like these guys. Should we like go away from them?" I was like, "Oh, wait, well, fuck that. We're gonna go talk to them right now." And we're like, "Guys, what's going on, man? Where the deals at? We're real estate investors." Mike handing out his business cards, and this one guy who I think is just homeless at the time, he's like, "Oh, I got a property for you guys." Yeah. Brings us into this shell. There's like shit everywhere. This guy clearly doesn't own this house. I think he's squatting in it, and he's like, yeah, check out the house. And we're like, bro, we ain't walking in this house, man. We don't know who's going to come out this thing. What's going on over here? My boy never freaking wanted to get into real estate again after that. He was like, so just like petrified. It was hilarious, man. Such a funny story. And there's like so many of those experiences, but those are how you find your deals.
I used to drive around like Point Breeze every day in my white Lexus, which I had wrapped all over. We buy houses, and I would just run to guys on the corner, pull up on the curb, be like, "Yo, here's my business card. I'll give you $2,000 if you find me a property." And I just love doing that. I used to do it all the time. It was like, you got to run up on every corner guy, because they know everything. They know what's happened. They know who's selling, who's moving, who's losing, who's making moves.
Yeah. So prior to getting into real estate and going to those sheriff sales, I mean, what was the transition from what you did previously, or did you always do real estate?
No, I mean, before real estate, I actually tried to do like an import-export business with, I was always like, knew I was going to be an entrepreneur in some sort ever since I dropped out of college. I did a year of college. I realized it wasn't for me. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I watched my dad be an entrepreneur, and I just wanted to work for myself. So, I did import export for a while. I was selling computer chips. I had a few different businesses, to be honest with you. I had a nightclub. I did quite a few things. I lived in Russia for a year. I was working out in Moscow. But then when I came back from Moscow in 1999, that's when I was kind of like, all right, I got to like find something I'm going to do for a long time. My next career future. And that's when this guy, Tony and Glenn, they were going to the sheriff sales like 5 years before me, and they brought me on board. And, after a couple of months, I just rolled from there. But it really gave me a good training. Plus, it's a lot of networking. It's where you actually meet and shake hands and develop a lot of, really good relationships, because all these people you're bidding against become, they're almost like your competition, but they're also like your associates. You also like, everyone kind of worked together, and it was like a mutual respect. So it was a really good way to meet like real buyers that actually have money and know what they're doing and don't just bullshit.
When I used to go to the sheriff sales, I used to feel like I was back in high school. It was like, when you went through the sheriff sales, it was, packed, obviously. But then every segment of like in the room, it was like we had the Russian buyers over here. We had the Arabs over here.
The Israeli guys in the back on the left.
Yeah.
I remember where everybody sat. It was great.
Yeah, it was crazy. And
COVID fucked everything up.
Yeah, COVID. Again, messed it all up, because that was a great resource for buyers. And, and being a wholesaler and buyer myself, I mean, that was, like you said, one of the greatest ways to network. now we have everything's online, and I can't say that that's a terrible thing. It definitely opens you up for, higher price points, but
No, it was great because like an hour before the sheriff's sale, like some of the top guys would just come up early just to like kind of network and mingle and see who's coming and who's bidding on what and who's bringing what research and how it's like it was incredible for a while.
Greg, how have you been able to stay competitive? I mean, 20 plus years doing wholesale, man. Like, dude, the market has changed so much. There's been people fly by night in this industry. How have you continued to just, be a precedence out here in the wholesale industry?
So, I kind of been able to wear a lot of hats and it's all part of real estate, right? But then, there's a point you want to try the BRRR method, right? You want to be a landlord. You think everyone's buying rentals. Why can't I? It's the best business in the world, blah, blah, blah. So you buy some rentals, fix, rehab, rent, refi, the whole shit. I didn't love it, but I did that for 5 or 6 years. That kept me busy. Then I ended up selling all my rentals off because I didn't love managing the rentals and worrying about the rentals. And then I learned how to like buy, fix, and flip, right? The fix and flip game that came next. So that kept me busy for a while. Then I learned, my brother and I decided to start developing. So we learned how to like buy land and build. So that kept me busy for a while. Then when the sheriff sales died off, I realized I had to pivot. I pivoted into like starting my own wholesale company, hiring people under me, bringing the right people under me, and start sending out the letters, the postcards, the text blasts, guys cold calling. So you always have to pivot. Every 2 or 3 years, you got to pivot. You got to go with what works. And, but you always have to be self-motivating, right? You have to surround yourself with the right people and you always got to be networking. Like one of my biggest things is networking and bringing people together. I don't believe in competition. I'm one of the few people that don't mind bringing my buyers and sellers and wholesalers all together in one room to collaborate. People ask me like, what are you crazy? You're inviting all your buyers to meet all these wholesalers? Like, that's stupid. I was like, nah, it's really not. Because, all roads come back to Rome, right? All roads lead to Rome, and they know who puts this together and they know who they got to go to when they need something done. So there was like events every night you could go to and just meet and shake hands, Now it's finally back, thank God. There's not as many as there used to be, but these networking events are back, and that's where you really get to shake hands and look people in the eye and see what they got and how you could help each other, how you could collaborate, and there's nothing like it, physical contact, face to face.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite parts of the industry, man, is the meetups, actually going to the networking events, right? I remember before COVID, man, they were just, like you said, every night, it's good excuse to crack some beers, hang out, build some camaraderie with some guys, man. People like-minded in the industry. It's a blast. That's where deals got done. I remember me and Mike used to print out our marketing stuff, and we would just be handing out, here's the deals we got, who's buying? It was just, it's how we sold deals. It was the best way.
Yeah. If I didn't leave with a big deal at every networking event, I would feel like it was a failure. Like I would straight up have to leave with some kind of fucking real deal in my pocket.
Yeah. And I love your mindset. I share the same mindset, and I always say it to everybody. I mean, you can't think of every deal as your last. I mean, you have to have an abundance mindset. It's either abundance or scarcity. It's one of the two. And I find that I do more deals with people using the abundance mindset, and it always comes back, right? As long as we're all making money, then we're all going to continue to make money and share resources, which I truly believe is the best mindset in this game.
No, absolutely. I threw an event, 3 weeks ago at the Billy Penn Studios, and I couldn't believe it. We had 350 people come, and wow. It was great, man. It was all buyers, investors, wholesalers, developers. It was incredible. I couldn't believe the turnout we had. I turned this office building into a nightclub.
You used to be in the nightclub business, you were saying, right? How was that?
It was fun. People were like, you guys should go back to that business. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'll stick with bricks.
Yeah, right.
Can you take us back to your first deal that you ever got into, whether it was a burr or a wholesale or a fix and flip? Can you take us back to your first one and what that was, what were the logistics of the financing and things of that nature, and how did it end up?
Well, again, the first few deals I bought were the first 3 deals I bought was probably the first day I went to the sheriff's sale. I came there or the second time I went. The first time I probably went just looking, then I got like my fix on. Second time I went, I think I left with like 3 Kensington houses that I bought for maybe $5 to $7 grand each. So what's that? $20,000 in properties. I bought 3 properties for 20 grand. I had to give them $2,000 deposit, which is 10%. So you're leaving the sheriff's sale with 3 bid slips. You just bought 3 properties with $2,000. And then you're like, all right, now what do I do? Right? Do I want to fix them and rent them and refi them? Do I want to flip them? Do I want to fix and flip them? Do I want to buy them and then resell them? Like it's sometimes you buy it first and then you figure out what you're going to do with it. You don't always know the end goal until you acquire the asset. But yeah, the first few I bought were just like houses in Kensington for $5 or $6 grand. But this was back in '99. You're not going to buy a house now for $5 grand. But yeah, we ended up rehabbing them. I rehabbed them. I rented it and I refied it. And that's when I started, between 99 and 2003, I think my brother and I built like 60 rentals in like 3 years, which was nice. And then I hated it. I didn't like managing the rentals. So we just sold the portfolio off. And that's when we started like fixing and flipping. But I used to do a lot of Oak Lane, Germantown, Mount Airy, Alney. That was kind of where I started out. I wish I started out in Northern Liberties like some of the other guys I know, but I didn't.
Did you have any success with wholesaling the sheriff's sales within that 30-day period to bring the rest of the cash to the table?
Yeah, for sure. That was actually a big part of a lot of people were flipping their bid slips and it was perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with it. You're assigning your bid slip to a third party. They pay you an assignment fee. The sheriff was totally okay with it. They would accept the assignment fee. They would accept the assignment contract with the new buyer's information. The new buyer comes in and pays for it, and then it pays you whatever your assignment fee is. So that was a really big business for a while. Is just flipping yellow slips.
Right. One of the challenges that I always found with it, and I've only ever done one, and the reason being, and maybe because your buyer's list is stronger than mine, perhaps at least from the sheriff's sale perspective, was that title wasn't able to insure it.
Well, in the beginning, they were actually from 99 until about like 2012, 13. They were insuring tax sales. Then then all the title. Yeah, that's when it was like the wild, wild west. It was
crazy.
It was phenomenal. But then they stopped probably in like 13 or 14. But mortgage sales were always insurable. It was the tax sales that aren't.
Yeah. Correct.
Mortgage sales are still insurable, but you don't have the time to get the title insurance because you got to pay for the bid slip within 10 days now.
Yeah, geez, I wish I was wholesaling back in the early 2000s, man. You were probably cleaning up back then.
Yeah, you could say that.
So what would you say to somebody that's, heard about this thing called wholesaling, trying to get into the business? What would you say to that guy today? Where should he start? What should he look for? How should he get involved?
So, it depends on what level you want to be at, right? Like you could always join another team and make a smaller piece, but learn the game a lot better and do more volume. Or you could try to do it on your own. And then you're like doing, 2 deals a year, 3 deals a year, as compared to maybe 10 deals a year working for someone, but you're getting like, 25% instead of 100%. Right. So it depends. If there's a lot of different ways. If you want to learn the business, there's so many podcasts out there and there's so many like training. Like I'm actually a big fan, even though it's like very simple, but I really love what Zach and Rick Ginn do. I think they're phenomenal. I think they're teaching people for free, which is one of the few real free classes that they actually give you really good information. If I was a young guy coming in, honestly, today, I would watch Zach and Rick Ginn every day. I would listen to their podcast. I would listen to everything they tell you to do every single day. Go after the list they tell you to go after. I mean, they give you like, they script it. They give you like every step you need from front to back in a very, very simple, easy to understand way. I'm very impressed with Zach and Rick Ginn, actually. A lot of my new guys that I hire, I make them watch their podcasts and read their material and go after the list that they tell you to go after, like the probate list, the tax lien list, the code violation list. They really teach you everything. It's actually pretty impressive. I don't know if you guys seen them or what.
Surely.
Yeah, definitely have, for sure. No, that's good advice. There's such an abundance of free information now online from guys that are just giving it back the same way that me and Mike are with this. So the education's expensive, but it's, building the network, putting good, valuable information out to guys that are getting into the industry or trying to, scale and shift what they're doing. That's why it's so great to be able to have people like yourself on here that they've been through it, man. You've been through the trenches. You've been doing this forever. You're a veteran, and I think it's so valuable for these guys.
I think another thing that I think is real important that I'm coming across a lot, because, I JV a lot, where I have guys calling me or texting me or calling my team or whatever, be like, yo, I got this under contract, but I can't sell it. Hook me up, help me sell it at JV. But then I'm like, well, you offered too much. You obviously are giving the seller what they want. You tried to negotiate, it didn't work. You said, okay, you signed a contract. Now you can't sell it because you signed it for too much. So you're wasting your time. You're wasting the seller's time. You're wasting everyone's time. You're wasting my time. So if you can't get it for the right price, it's okay to say no. And it's okay to wait for a call back until they see they can't get that from someone else. And then they come back to you because they realize your offer was fair and reasonable. So I think one of the biggest problems is all these new investors coming in. They get so excited, like, oh, I'm going to sign it up. I'm going to make 20 grand. But then they sign it up too high and they can't flip it and they can't sell it. And they get deep. Then they don't want to do it again because they spent all this time and energy and they couldn't sell it. Now that deal died. Now they got to find another deal. So I think pricing the deal is as important as finding the deal.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That is 100% certain.
And I turn away a lot of business people that just sign shit up too high. And I'll be like, look, you got to go back and renegotiate. If you can't renegotiate, I can't help you. But I actually tell them, like, moving forward, why don't you like text me or my team and ask us our advice where to offer, because a very wise guy told me once that if your offer's not low enough, then you're doing something wrong. If your offer doesn't give you make the hair on your back stand up and you feel like an asshole that you're coming in so low, you're probably not offering the right price.
I like that.
Yeah.
Being as though you're one of the biggest players in Philadelphia for so long, what are your thoughts on, going to different markets and scaling your business to, creating systems with other team members in different markets?
Yeah, that's actually a good. People ask me that a lot. Me personally, I love Philly. I know Philly so well. Philly is my niche, and I want to build on that niche rather than expanding into Tampa, which is a lot of people doing, which is, so far away, right? I don't know what to offer a house in Tampa or what I could sell it for, right? I know Philly. So rather than expanding into different markets, I chose to expand to warehouses, industrial, commercial deals, but stay in Philly, right? So rather than expanding out, I'm expanding, out wider rather than farther, right? So now my team is looking for warehouses. A lot of people are looking for reusable warehouses. Those paydays are nice. It takes a lot longer to close a warehouse deal, but the paydays are well worth it if you could take it to the finish line. So, that's my expansion. That's how I wanted to expand personally, rather than going to a city I don't know. I'd rather stay what I know well, maybe expand a little bit into Jersey because there's a lot of land and commercial deals and warehouses in Jersey as well. But besides Philly and Jersey, I don't mess around anywhere.
Right. So you essentially just looking at expanding by getting higher ticket prices and asset classes, essentially.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with the way interest rates are now, these big deals are hard to do. So I'm back to flipping those $50,000-$60,000 shells, to be honest with you.
There's nothing wrong with that, buddy.
Nothing wrong with that. It pays the bills and it keeps me in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the beauties of wholesale, man. You just kind of do it remotely as long as you got an internet connection, computer. You can kind of just hop on the phone and call the motivated sellers. That's the good news.
Absolutely, but you do have to be boots on the ground. You know what I mean? You gotta be boots on the ground, or at least have people you could trust boots on the ground. But then, like, if you're not around, they start messing up. So unfortunately, you got to be around. I tried doing it from here like a while ago, and it didn't work.
What challenges did you have for a lot of guys that do this virtually, right? Where they're not in the market that they're wholesaling. What would you say the biggest advantages are to having those boots in the ground, aside from like the inspections of the property, right? Like, what would you say that the biggest benefit of physically being in the city that you're wholesaling in?
I mean, your team, that everyone under you, right? I'm a big believer in like having the right people around you. Like, you can't do it all. You can't make all the calls. You can't make all the texts. You can't do it all, right? So you gotta have a good team. You gotta have your like top five, like a basketball team, right? You gotta have your 5 top and your 6 man off the bench, right? So that's what I have. Like, I have my top 6 guys. Then I have like 20, 30 guys after that, but I have like my top 6, right? My top 5 and my 6 man off the bench. So, they need to know you're there. If they think you're in Florida on the beach, it's a mental thing. It's a mental, emotional, thing where they know that your boss is there and they're there for you and on the ground with you, fighting with you and in the fields. Like in my office, my manager, my dispo guy, has the private office, the sexy private office with the couch and looks, you know what I mean? I sit in the main room with my guys because I want to, right? That's how I believe in it. It works.
Agreed.
I like that. Actually being in the trenches, man, that's so important.
Yeah. And I take my guys out. I enjoy it. I put them in my car and I'll drive them for dollars with them. Cause there's actually a technique to it. It's not, you don't just drive around aimlessly and write down addresses. Any idiot can do that.
I think that's one of the reasons why you've probably been so successful for so long, man. It's just, you're passionate about it, right? You actually still want to do this every day that you wake up. And I think that's so imperative. I've known so many guys that have just gotten a little bit of success in here and then, they've gone off in other ventures or, they've tried to just remove themselves and just have people, work and kind of, try and scale through that. And it's not effective, man. It does not work.
No, you got to love what you do. You got to be passionate about it. You got to wake up hungry. You got to wake up knowing there's a treasure out there. Like I read a book that says like, if you know there's a treasure in your house that's hidden, you're going to run into every room, every closet, basement, everywhere, looking for that little treasure because it's there. So you know what I mean? So it's the same thing with real estate. It's there. You just got to look for it. You got to use your brains to figure out why this is the right piece to go after.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how many acquisition guys me and Mike get, man, I still want to get on the phone with these sellers, man. It's just fun. Yeah. It's so much fun. No matter how many guys we have, right? The best way to lead is by example. Like, if I can't pick up the phone and make that call, how am I going to expect somebody else to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love to as well. Unfortunately, I've become like the underwriter and the firefighter. So my job is to, underwrite deals, tell them what to offer, and then like just scream at sellers that change their mind and just put on my fire suit and put the fires out. Like that's basically my job right now is in job description.
Some would say that if you can get a deal done in Philadelphia, you can get a deal done anywhere.
Yeah.
What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, I agree. People are real here. They don't take bullshit. They can hear from the way you talk and the language you use and the words you use that or you don't know what you're talking about. And if they don't trust you and you don't say the right thing, and you say, if you're calling a house that's in Olney and you call it Olney or some stupid shit, you can't even pronounce the neighborhood, that person ain't gonna sell you their house.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know where you're calling, then you shouldn't be calling it. If you're calling 19144 and you don't know you're calling Germantown, you have no business calling it. You know, you got to know, you can't just like randomly just think you're going to make money. Like, you got to know it's the biggest asset that these sellers are ever going to sell in their life. It's the biggest ticket item. It's more expensive than a car, than a watch, than anything. It's a 50, 70, 100, $200,000 asset that it's very important, and you got to treat it as such. And when you talk to these sellers, you have to give them the respect that you're buying their biggest asset, and they want to trust you, and they want to know that you know what you're talking about. And one of the ways people don't understand that one of the ways you can show people you know what you're talking about is by questions, which is weird because that's usually like people think, oh, if I ask a question, it means I don't know what I'm talking about. It's actually the reverse. If you ask intelligent questions, people respect that, and they show that you're actually interested. And as long as the questions are intelligent, and then people respect that, and it actually helps you close the deal. It makes it easier for you if you ask the right questions to get the right information.
Obviously, you have to know where you're calling. And one of the things that I've found in Philadelphia that's always been a challenge because it was so impoverished for so long is that there were a lot of abandoned properties and a lot of title issues. Can you talk about like any really crazy title problem that you had that you were able to get through and solve?
There's been so many of them. I mean, again, like, being involved with sheriff sales, like I've seen it all. I've seen the craziest shit. The craziest titles, unfortunately I've seen deals where like the deal is like a $250,000 deal. And because of code violations, the seller walks with like 20 grand or 30 grand. Like, it's crazy. But it's hard to clean up a title. It depends on what the issue is. Sometimes you got to walk away from that too. It's just gonna eat you up, and then at the end of the day, it's not gonna close it. So really, it depends what the title issue is. But again, back to that, I really rely on my title agent and my go-to title company to really give me guidance, because that's their business, right? Like, if you're smart, you got to use professional. You got to be able to phone a friend, right? So if it's a title issue, you got to be able to call the owner of the title company and get their advice. If it's a neighborhood that I think I know, which I probably know, but I don't know as great as, my guy Steve Capriati in Fishtown, for example. Like, I know Fishtown really well, but he may know it better than me. So I'll reach out, phone a friend. Yo, what do you think about this? Someone you can trust. So I'm always like asking for advice, even though I think I know the right answer, because I think it's smart to do that. And I do the same thing with title as well. Just surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, I've been noticing recently too. I don't know if you've noticed this as well, G, but like a lot of the teardown liens have been astronomically large in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, recently, man, I've seen like 4 properties this past week where the teardown liens were like 50, 60 grand. Like, it's getting crazy out here. So crazy, and those are tough conversations to have with these sellers too, where it's like, dude, like, your property's worth less than what the lien is on there, and it's like.
For sure. Well, the liens used to be like 30,000. Now they're definitely going up to like past 40 for like for a simple row home.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Crazy.
But again,
So
that's city bullshit. They just keep making it harder and harder, unfortunately.
They do. So today in your portfolio, do you hold any rentals anymore, or you've just completely liquidated?
No, I hold a few. But I was doing a bunch of fix and flips. Unfortunately, that game kind of got shitty too. It's like, it's harder to find the right price property in an area that you're going to sell it for an ARV of at least, 350, 300. And then the construction costs are so much more. And then right now with ARVs, if they're, if you were at a 400,000 out sale and that's down 10%, now you're at a 360 out sale. Does it make sense to make, 15, 20 grand and busting your ass for a year? managing the rehab, putting on the market, or do you just flip it and make a quick 6, 7, 8 and call it a day?
Yeah.
So that's, it's something you got to figure out. But again, that's like, how much volume do you get and how many deals do you get? And, everybody's different, but I keep a small portfolio with my wife just to make her happy, but I don't love the rental game. I just, the fix and flip or the quick flip or the wholesale flip is in my veins and I can't get it out.
Yeah.
So when you're underwriting or analyzing a deal, a lot of people use different methods, different strategies. I mean, everybody knows the 70% minus construction or, ARV minus construction gives you your number. But when you're underwriting for a wholesale, is there any particular data that you look for to know that you can create a spread there?
So that's actually a question I get a lot too, especially from my guys that try to figure out how I underwrite so they could do it themselves without asking me. But believe it or not, there's no ratio to it. I can tell you exactly what I do. I go to public records on the MLS, look up the property, and that public record sheet, believe it or not, if you go from the top to the bottom, is going to tell you the whole story of the property, right? It's going to tell you whether the owner's in state or out of state. It's going to tell you the square footage, the lot size, the zoning, when he bought it, how much he bought it for, whether it was listed, how much it was listed for, does it have pictures? If it was listed, how many days on the market? It gives you the location of it. It tells you who owns it, what nationality the seller is. That one public record sheet tells you the story, right? Then it has the assessed value, right? So before, up until a couple of years ago, you couldn't really go off of the assessed value because you just couldn't. Now it's not that hard. You could pretty much make an offer according to the assessed value and take off like 20% just to come in a little lower. I evaluated just by looking at the public record sheet, then kind of knowing comps. Obviously, if you don't know comps the way I do, then you got to look at comps, right? You got to go in, then you got to go into the comp part of the public record of MLS and comp out the block, what people spotted for in the past couple of years, properties in the same vicinity. But like, I know this house will, I basically know I could wholesale this house for this number, so I got to buy it at this number in order for me to make at least $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, where it's like I stay in Philadelphia because I know that market, right? And that's just one of those things where it's like, all right, what 100 block of it is on this zip code? Okay, yeah, all right, this is probably what it's worth right now. Not even looking at anything. Exactly. So it's just one of those things, where you just know.
Exactly.
So how do you see both the market and your business strategy evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
So the market is strange. This market is strange. There's a ton of people in the market trying to make money and harassing sellers and don't know what they're doing and making bad offers. The interest rates are high. The cap deals don't pencil out. So a lot of these big developers who have made all this money for the last 10 years, they don't even know what to do. So they're just sitting stagnant, sitting on money because they made so much money in the past 10, 15 years on this uprise. And now they can't find a deal that really pencils out. So they're just like sitting there, not making any moves. So it's definitely a weird market. That's why we kind of had to take a step backwards. And because, a couple of years ago, we got excited and we're looking for these $1 million, $2 million, $3 million deals. And now we're back to looking at $50,000 shells, because that's what's selling. That's what people want to buy now. They don't want to buy the $1 million deals because they just don't pencil out. The cap rates don't work. And the interest rate messes it all up. So it was like another shift, right? Another pivot. Like I didn't want to go back to Kensington. I wanted to keep looking at these $5 million warehouses, which are more exciting than a $50,000 shell in Kensington. But, that's what pays the bills. That's what pays the rent.
That's a great point, actually. Because I'm talking to sellers every day. They're finally starting to realize that, what their property was worth maybe, in the height of, 2021, beginning of 2022 isn't what it is now. But, how would you give advice to somebody that's dealing with a seller that's just super unrealistic or doesn't realize what just happened and doesn't understand what interest rates do to people's buying power and things of that nature?
You got to get the no, getting to the no, right? There's a book on how you get to the no. You got to get the no. You got to, there's a book on getting to the yes, and there's a book on getting to the no. You got to get the no. You got to lowball them. You got to explain why you're lowballing them. You got to explain that and then you got to follow up 3 days later, 5 days later, 2 weeks later. And that's all about follow up. But sometimes you gotta get the no and you gotta move on. You can't let that in your head, shit, I should have went higher. I could have got this deal, blah, blah, blah. You gotta get the no, especially now, you gotta get the no. Once you get to the no, then you can get past that. Then you can follow up and then you can then you can increase your offer by, if you offered 65, then you go to 67.5, you go to 69.5, and you do that every couple of weeks until you get what you want. But you can't, until the seller sees that they're not going to get what they want from other people like you, and then they come back to you if they like what you said and they remember you. Because that's the key, right? You want them to remember you. People forget. So you want to when you talk to them, you want to make sure you tell them to lock your number in. You got to do that. People don't do that. Then they forget you. Please lock my number in when we hang up so you can call me when you don't, in case you change your mind. Something as simple as lock my number in, which is sounds so simple, like you said in the beginning, where but it's so important because people don't. And if you don't remind them, then they forget your number.
Yeah, you're not lying. And plus they get a million calls every freaking day. I can't tell you how many people it's oh, you another investor calling me? God damn it. Man, you're the fifth one today. Right. So, they get bombarded, but I think that's so great, man, is, majority of the deals that come through is because you followed up with them. It's such a simple concept, but it's a contact sport. The more touches that you do, the more likely that you are to close that. And, another thing that I've realized is you can never pay their asking price ever because they feel like they can get more, or, they feel like it was too easy, or there's, seller's remorse, or, whatever the case may be. It's one thing that I've definitely realized is you can't pay their number ever.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about contact sport, it really is. It's constant contact, right? It's constant contact with everyone, though, not just sellers. You got to contact with your buyers, with your sellers, with the title company, with the guy you're joint venturing with everyone. You have to constant contact. You should be calling your buyer every week, giving them an update on how it's going. Otherwise, he forgets too. Your seller, how's it going? Did you find a place to move? Did you do that? If you don't have constant contact, your fallout rate, it's like this, right? Constant contact increases, your fallout rate decreases. As soon as your constant contact decreases, your fallout rate increases. It's something that you can't change. It is the way, that's what it is.
Yeah. So Greg, I want to thank you for your time. I know your time is very valuable, but is there anything else you would like to mention or share with the listeners? Do you have any upcoming events or any way that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah. My next event is going to be June 1st at the Cherry Street Pier. It's probably going to be the biggest event Philly's seen in a while. Looking for 600-700 people, hopefully. It's going to be dope. Yeah, the pier is awesome too. It's really big, so it's going to be a real nice event. But yeah, people can reach me, Greg at Gbuysphilly.com. My website is Gbuysphilly.com. All my inventory is on gbless.com. And I think everyone knows me. They just reach out to me, and I'm very social. I'm very easy to talk to, and it's a people business. You gotta it's not all, it can't all be virtual. People got to go out, shake hands and kiss babies and walk the streets and walk up on people sitting on the stoop and say good, talk to them and have a conversation. And you can't underestimate anyone. The money's made in the streets for real. If you don't know the streets, then you can't make the money. It's not as easy as it looks. Like you gotta love what you do, and you gotta be fair, and you gotta make the right offers. Really, right now, if you don't make the right offers, you're just wasting everyone's time, and you're just muddying waters for everyone else.
Yep,
agreed.
But thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. There's a lot of wisdom there, a lot of jewels. So I'm hoping people can take this information and increase and level up their business. And if there's anything I can do for you personally, please let me know. Hopefully I can get to that event. That sounds like monumental.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely going to that, man. That's gonna be a good time. Definitely gonna be a good time.
You guys are definitely welcome. It'll be out on social media. It'll be nice for sure.
Man. Well, we appreciate you sharing the good news as always.
Yep. All right, guys. Rock on. Always be networking.
Yes, sir.
Great.